What's up, everybody? This is the Jedi. So, story time. But before I get into this, I want you to know that I have now several videos in the can for you that I'm kangarooing over. I already told you I had 3, but then I did another one because I was going to bring you this video about, Steve Harvey. His show is canceled. Allahu Akbar. And Lee Daniels. I told you have to say it like that because that's how Oprah says it. So we have to say it that way. You see what I'm saying? The director Lee Daniels. The director Lee Daniels, you see. So I will put that one after this one. I'm not going to wait on it. I'm just going to like release this and I'm going to release that one. All right. I'm not going to hold it. But this was important to share because I am never pulled over by the police. But today I was. And ironically, it was in my own driveway. So, and I wish I had a picture. I should have took a picture in the... Alright, whatever. Anyway, so I'm on my way home. And I turn on my street. I'm coming down my street. And I see the cop SUV turn onto my street too. That's fine. So I approached my driveway and I put on my blinker and I turned in my driveway. Well, they were speeding up now and they turned on their lights, you see. So I'm in my driveway and my window's down. So I turn around. I'm leaning sort of out the window and turned around. And I'm like, "Can I help you?" He's getting out of the car, you know. So he comes up to my window and he says, "Yeah, you got a brake light out." Well, I knew this was garbage to begin with because the way the lights are on my Honda is you have 2 on the left side and 2 on the right side. So even if one is out on the right side or the left, let's say one is out on the left, you still have one next to it that works when you hit the brake. All right. Same thing on the right side. All right. It's kind of redundant. But then I also have my tail that goes across the back of the trunk that has the brake lights in it. All right. So I clearly have brake lights. We can get into how they're arranged and which ones are on and which ones are not, but I have brake lights, you see. So he says, "Oh, because you have a tail light out." I said, "Oh, really?" I go, "Okay, well," I said, I'm going to step out. I wanted to let him know I'm stepping out. I said, "I'm going to step out so I can look at it." "Oh, okay." So I get out and I'm walking to the back of my car. Car's still running. I said, "Can you tap on my brake and see so I can see what we're dealing with?" Immediately he goes into the lane. All right, we're going to deal with that in a moment. Do you have any warrants or are you on probation or parole? I took my sunglasses off to articulate and to accent my objection. I said, "Excuse me?" "Yeah, it's just, do you have any warrants or you're on parole or probation?" I said, "Just a second. You said you pulled me over because I have a tail light out. So, what are we dealing with?" "Well, it's just standard." We asked the question. I said, "Well, here's what we're going to do. I'm the motorist. You've stated that you pulled me over for a brake light that's not operating. So we're going to deal with that." Then his partner gets out. He's a Latino. The first one is a pinche gringo. So the partner comes out. He goes, "It's just standard, because we investigate drugs and various things in the area." And I was like, "No, that's all fine." I go, "But that's not what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with a tail light, is what we're dealing with." And so he goes, "Well, it's just," and then now the pinche gringo says he wants to pat me down. I go, whoa, 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 whoa. We're not doing any patting down. He goes, just for officer safety. I go, really? I said, because all of the current day statistics show that I'm the one who should be concerned about my safety. I said, you're aware, aren't you, of the climate and indeed the history, but certainly the history and the current climate of the relationship between Africans and police in this nation, right? Here's what it's not, it's not we're trying to harass. I go, but just so you understand, I'm the one. You got two people standing here with guns, and I'm a possible threat. I go, we're not dealing with that. So, can somebody press my brake so that I can see the taillights? I said, because many years ago I was traveling from Atlanta to Maryland, and I was in the Carolinas, and I was pulled over and the cop said I had a tail light, and they were happy to get in and press the brake, and I saw it, and that was it, and I was on my way. I said, what we have here is a difference of policing. I said, because if I lived in a different neighborhood, certainly an all white or rich neighborhood, it would just be the tail light and you'd be on your way. Now it's an investigation, it's a whole, all this. And I'm offended by that. Well, we don't mean to offend you, it's just that, you can understand that. I go, well, no, you need to understand. And I said, so, did you pull me over for a brake light, or did you pull me over just to investigate me? Well, it's for a tail light. I said, so still, can you press my brakes so that I can see my tail lights? So the devil goes up, reaches in, and presses my brake. Well, turns out my tail is working, and one of the ones on the right is working, and one of the ones on the left is working. I said, so I've got brake lights. So what are we dealing with? Well, it's just they're not all working. I go, no, that's not in violation of any vehicle code. That's very different than having no brake light. I have brake lights. It doesn't say what sequence they have to be in and all that. I have brake lights. Period. So the Latino, he was saying, he goes, well, as a minority too, I said, first of all, you need to understand that we're not minorities, you and I. And surprisingly, he goes, yeah, I know that. I go, good. I said, because we're not minorities. It's something we're being told. I go, this guy, they're the minority, not us, you see. And so I said, but so you could understand that the relationship between Africans and the police is not something that's cozy. And I don't appreciate that the first thing he says when we get out of the car is he asks me if I'm on probation or parole, or do I have any warrants and all this, and it's a tail light. I go, that's the fundamental problem with the attitude and the double standard of policing that goes on. One standard for us and a different standard for everybody else. So, again, we're not dealing with that. If you want to know anything, then you need to investigate that. Because I also have a Fifth Amendment privilege. You see, not saying I have anything to hide, but maybe I do. Maybe I don't. But that's your job to prove guilt or a crime. I'm dealing with a tail light. That's what I'm dealing with. That's all I'm going to deal with, And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I will assert myself. That I will do. So then, I can't remember what the Latino cop said. Something he said that made me say to him, I said, well, I actually speak your language. And I said, and I have a great love for Latino culture. That's the only reason why I took Spanish, So there was like a personal moment because I'm trying to steer him to get out of this damn mode of overzealot cop. you know. So I said to them, I said, if you're policing a community, then it's kind of like if you run a business. When you run a business of any kind, or you sell a product, or you do something, you always want feedback from your customers. What do they want? How do they like your product? How can you improve? All these things add up to revenue for your company, your product, or your business, and they also make for a good customer experience. So you should take the same philosophy when it comes to policing. First, then I asked the devil, I said, where are you from? And he doesn't live in the area, which I knew that. That's the only reason why I asked him the question. I said, well, then especially you. I said, when you go into any neighborhood, certainly where it's not your people, excuse me, you would do yourself a service to listen to the people. But certainly when you're dealing with Africans, you need to be sensitive. Because what we don't appreciate, and indeed will not tolerate, is being immediately branded and treated as criminals when we haven't done anything at all. So that if you're pulling somebody over for a tail light, you don't need to turn it into a federal investigation of who they are. What's next? You want a semen sample? You want DNA? You want a hair follicle? What's going to be next? And then the Latino goes, well, we're not going that far. I go, well, it is that far. That's what you need to understand. You need to hear me. You need to hear me because I am the source. It's me. It's me. So you need to hear what I'm saying if you're interested in serving the community and being a good officer. And by the way, all that will add up to officer safety. Because the only reason why you would feel unsafe is if you have if you are loaded down with some kind of a guilt. You see, why do you need to feel threatened by me unless you know that there is animus between you and my people? Because would you pull over the Pope and ask him that? Well, first you probably wouldn't even pull the Pope over. But if you did, you certainly wouldn't be asking to pat him down and asking him if he's on parole or probation, if he's had, does he have any drugs on him and all the other nonsense. So I want and demand the same thing. I said, so it's for me, for you, this is about ego. For me, this is about my self-esteem, my dignity, and my principles. That's what it's about, and my humanity. That's what it's about for me. So I don't have time to give in to your ego. Well, it's not about ego, it's just we have a job to do. I go, yeah, so I'm trying to tell you how to do your job, because if you're a police officer, the public is your job. So I am the customer. I'm the feedback. And I'm giving it to you now. So when you pull and I'm in my driveway, by the way. So if you're pulling somebody over, whatever you're pulling them over for, then you need to articulate that and stay on that. Because when you go into the other lane, that's when things happen. And I'm not the one. I'm not. I'm not that one that is going to relinquish my self-dignity and my rights and my humanity over a tail light. It's not going to happen. That we're not doing. So how do we want to handle the tail light now? Well, we just wanted to give you a friendly warning. You see, now it's a warning. Because it was some bullshit. You see, I just wanted to give you a warning. I go, okay, appreciate that, Appreciate that, And as soon as I get a free moment, I'll head to AutoZone and, get some other bulbs. Although this is clearly not in violation of anything because I do have brake lights. We can agree. Well, it's just that they're not all working. I said, well, let me tell you something else. I said, here's something I say and believe. Anytime you want to have reconciliation, there must be acknowledgement. Whether it's your wife, your kids, your neighbor, your coworker, a friend, doesn't matter. Whatever the issue, in order to have reconciliation, there must be acknowledgement. And so two things are a problem here for me. One, You're not acknowledging that there is now and always has been a historical animus between the police and African people based on your attitudes and your actions when you approach us. And you're not acknowledging that indeed I do have tail lights. And you're not acknowledging that the real reason why you pulled me over is because you wanted to investigate me. That's what you're not acknowledging. And so that's fine. But let's just acknowledge what's the truth. Because that's what goes a long way to relations. You see, that's how you make inroads. That's how you cultivate peace and cooperation. And your job will be a lot easier. You know, approach me and deal with me as a human being, but also put yourself in my shoes. Don't turn into something else just because you have on a uniform. And then I said, I was a corrections officer for 3.5 years. And before that, I did 2 years of juvenile corrections. I says, but I was one of the most respected officers in the institution when I worked in the men's prison. I said, because I gave respect. Nobody's ever going to get in the way of anybody doing a job. Doesn't matter what their occupation is. As long as they offer respect. You see, I said, and what I never did is just because I had on a badge and a uniform, I never presented myself as if I had some power that I didn't have, but more importantly, I never represented that I was now sort of some different entity than a human just because I was wearing this uniform. And so that's what I would like to see you all do. Because I said too often, police come with this overly official, non-human way of being that you don't act like in your everyday life. Otherwise, none of your friends will be around you, not even your family. This is not natural. There's a way to be professional, and there's a way to be in your role, but you can still be human. You see? So, I totally had control of this. Total control. You understand? It's about using your mental power. Using your mental power. But you got to be able to read people as well. You see? Read their energy. And then plot your course according to that. You understand? So, after I lectured them, they were shaking my hand. I shook the Latino dude's hand. I shook the devil's hand. Of course, I will have to burn this hand off now after that, but that'll be in the book. That's something else. All right, stay focused. All right. And they were on their way. But I also offer this to say that one of the other things that served me is my vocabulary and my articulation, but also knowing how to play the layers. That's why I always tell brothers, you cannot be a one-trick pony. You got to have layers. Layers. So you know exactly what influx to put in your voice, literally your voice. You understand? How to use your voice, how to use your body language, how to use your intellect. All those things matter. These are layers. Layers, layers, layers. Now, it would have been vastly different if I had, and by the way, if I had had my music blasting and they had come up to the car and I didn't act like I knew anything about anything and start giving some ghetto-ass answers. That's what they were expecting, you see, because I was in full do-rag. There it was, you see. So they read it wrong. And I had on my sunglasses. So they read it wrong. In fact, the Latino dude said, "Well, obviously, you're a very smart guy." When it was a lead into something else he said during our conversation. But he said that. He goes, "I mean, obviously, you're a very smart and knowledgeable person. A very smart and knowledgeable guy." And then he went on to whatever he said. But again, that was acknowledgement. You see, not that he meant to give it. That wasn't his intention to acknowledge me in that way. He was just saying it. It was just the truth that it came out. But if they had come up and I had been, talking Ebonics, which I don't have nothing against Ebonics, you know what I'm saying? I'm from the south side of Chicago and I embrace my ghetto at all times. But I also know there's a time when to turn that layer down and turn something else up. You understand? Sometimes you got to turn down the eye and turn up the oven. Feel me? You see? Sometimes you got to turn the freezer up and turn the refrigerator down. You see? But if they had come up and I had been talking like some rapper, then maybe I would be recording this video from the county jail. You understand? But use that, you see, because I saw that to be one of the most disarming things that I did during this thing is I kept mentioning this relationship between Africans and police. So that cast me, without overdoing it, it cast me as someone who's politically astute. You understand? Not the Now the flip side of that is the ghetto person would say, "Y'all police always be fucking with black people. Y'all always be messing with black people, man. Y'all would see that would have been the flip side." The other side of that coin is what I did. You see, let's talk about it. I'm gonna bring it up. You see, because then I also put you on. That's got to have some kind of guilt. Whatever you do with it, even if you choose to ignore it, whatever. But I've planted something in your psyche. And I believe in the power of words. You understand? Because you can't unhear them. You can't unhear them. And depending on what they are and how they delivered, you can't unfeel them. You understand? So by saying that, boom, now, maybe, just maybe, there's a part of them that doesn't want to be on that list. Out of self-denial, whatever. Ooh, we're that. We don't want to be that. So subconsciously, they're now going to try to prove that they're not that. You see? Because I already put it out in a big banner. Well, we know the history and the current atmosphere between Africans and police, don't we? You see? Use your layers, my people. Use your layers, use your layers, use your layers, and trust the one who gives you life and breath right now. At all times. At all cost. At all cost. At all cost. You see? So, I did end up giving him my driver's license because he wanted an ID. I'm over it. But that would have been standard. You see? They can ask you for your ID. Even if it hadn't been in my driveway, let's say I'd been pulled over on the side of the road. The first thing that come up, they usually ask you for your driver's license and registration. So before they even get to whatever, well, it doesn't usually go that way with me because as soon as they come up and ask for that, the first thing I always say is, "Can I ask why I was pulled over?" You see, you never acknowledge or give them the crime. You see, let's say you've been speeding. So sometimes they come up and say, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" You always say, "I have no idea." Because remember, the burden of proof is on them. Prove a infraction. Prove it. So you never say, "Yeah, I was speeding," or whatever I was doing. You never say that. That's one. Number two, if they come up and they don't say that, and they say, "Hi, how you doing? Can I see your driver's registration, please?" Before you get it, you say, "Can I ask why I was pulled over?" Because that serves the same purpose. Like, I have no idea why you pulled me over. You see? So, always remember that. So, I gave him my ID. And then now he sees my name. So he knows he's definitely got the wrong one. Because my name is not Tyrone. It's not anything Slave. I told you guys my full name, first and last name, are Arabic. Period. So now he knows he's really got the wrong one. I'm so not what he thought I was. You see, He expected me to be Kiwan and, whatever. And I was supposed to talk a certain way and I was supposed to be a certain way, you see. But no. I was able to get in my major points in a succinct way that gave me command of the conversation and put them in a place of apprehension because they're disarmed. We just need to end this stop. They're ready to go now. This is not going like we thought it should and could. Because you got the wrong one. You have pulled over the Jedi. You understand? So this is not about me and how fantastic I am. It's about how fantastic the divine has allowed me to be and what he gives me. You understand? I always tell you, all knowledge is with Allah. At all times. At all times. You don't know anything. You are nothing. Somebody asks you your name. You say it. You only know that because Allah allowed you to know that in that moment. You don't know anything. And proving that statement is, how about you go and have a visit with somebody that's got Alzheimer's? Who doesn't know their name, don't know where they live, can't remember anything. You see? Because all knowledge at all times is with Allah. Every bit of it. Every bit of it at all times. Do you understand? Always remember that, everybody. Always remember that. Always, 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 always. So, I wanted to come and share that because, I was in a emotionally neutral place in the moment that this happened. Because sometimes, I'm always carrying energy. And so it could have happened in one of those moments where I'm just like at murder, kill, take no prisoners, burn everything, That's usually just under the surface at all times, But I was prepared. I was ready, And that's the other thing. You got to be ready. I always tell you, stand at your gate and be the captain of your ship at all times. At all times. Because what I know absolutely is none of these meatheads is smarter than me. They're not. They're not smarter than me. They're not as gifted as I am. They're not. You see? But even over that, I fear only the one who created me. And nothing or no one else is worthy of my fear. Everything else and everybody else is beneath me. Beneath me. Beneath me. It's like in Roots. Remember? When they give birth to the baby, they take it out at night and put it in blankets, and they hold it up to the sky and say, "Behold, the only thing greater than yourself." They're letting that child know this is African culture. They say, the one that created you is the only thing greater than you. That's it. That's it. But by holding them up to the stars, it's the universe. This vast thing. But all of that represents the divine. And so they hold the baby up, facing the heavens. And they say, "Behold, the only thing greater than yourself." I live by that. I live by that. There's nothing or no one that is greater than I. And I also know that the divine has made me the crown of his creation. That he has communicated to me and us that anything that we see in creation and nature, we are the crown of everything Allah has ever created. Everything. everything. We're the crown of his creation, even over the angels. Allahu Akbar. Even over the angels. Even over the angels. And so when you walk with that knowledge and understanding, your tone, your choice of words, your body language, your demeanor, everything about you is going to reflect that. That is your protection. That is your strength. That is your shield. That is the thing that annihilates the inferior when they're in your presence and when they approach you. Do you understand me? Excuse me. That is the thing. That's the thing. So there they are in all of their bulletproof vests and the walkie-talkies, and they got 80 pounds of shit on them, and I'm standing there with none of that. Yet, and they're both taller than me. Yet, I assumed my force field of power around me, and I controlled that entire situation. I'm sure they were talking about me for at least a couple of hours after they encountered me. No question. No question. But last thing I'll say is this also lays the pathwork for the next brother. Because he will look like I looked today. And maybe, just maybe, they will think twice. They think they see one thing, but they've encountered the Jedi. So maybe they've not had that experience before, but now they've encountered me. So now that next brother that may fit my description, that they're pulling over to investigate, maybe they're going to think twice. He might be like that Jedi dude. We might be wasting our time on this one. You see? So in those few minutes, I was able to assert that I know my rights without saying that. You see, I know my rights. Don't ever say that. Start articulating your rights. Articulate them. Don't ever say I know my rights. Don't ever do that. Don't do that, my people. Don't ever say those words. I know my rights. Don't say it. Don't. Just start articulating your rights. You see? Articulate them. Articulate them. In your expression, in your sentences, and in your inference. You see? Let it be known, this person knows. So that's why the Spanish dude said, it's obviously you're a very smart and intelligent guy, Because he saw I knew some things. And I never had to say, I know my rights. You see? I know my rights. But I also always tell you that nobody gives me a right. I am the Jedi. And when Allah breathed life into my embryo and said, be, in that breath of life, He installed every right I'm ever going to need on the earth. No man gives me a right. Think about that. No man gives me a right. No man on earth, hear this. No man, no human being on earth, certainly not a devil, gives me a right. I'm over it. See what I'm saying? Because I'm a man and a king. And so I don't need anyone to give me rights. I'm endowed with them by divine decree. You understand? Nothing or no one gives me a right. Allah has given me every right I'm ever going to need. It is my prerogative, duty, and obligation to assert my rights and to protect them for my damn self. The Jedi has spoken.